Hi, I'm Izzy Gentry. Welcome back to Made to Walk. Today, we're going to walk through a subject that's not as intense as we have been recently getting into. And that's because I really want to take the time to talk about some other communication things that are very helpful to your organization, but are not solely surrounded by the intense types of crisis, but they may still be heavily affecting your organization. So let's talk about the difference between branding and marketing. And why do we even need to know the difference? Because as a nonprofit or a church today in culture, you are either onboarding a team to be in house or you are outsourcing this to a third party organization or company. And it's important for you to know the language and to know what questions to ask. So let's dive in. What is the difference between branding and marketing? Branding builds your reputation and marketing shares your message. So let's just start with branding. There are three simple categories that go into the branding aspect. The first is strategy. You can't even really get into branding and marketing your organization if you have no clue what your vision is, if you have not discussed what your mission purpose is or who you are as an organization, who are the demographics of people who typically fit into your culture. And if you're really leading with this type of narrative that, like, well, we're an open door policy, anybody can be here, and we should, we're really not that set apart from any other church or organization in relation to the idea that, well, we have, typical Bible studies and we have typical micro ministries like women's ministry or Wednesday night Bible studies or what on. The thing is that you have a culture, whether you acknowledge it or not, and communicating that culture will heavily help you to reach the people that you want to reach, to come in and to feel comfortable and fit in and feel like this is their place and their space and their people. And it also helps you to be able to nourish and guide and cultivate communication and connection amongst like-minded people. But if people kind of come in and they're like, I don't know what to expect, and but this isn't really the vibe that I was hoping for. I don't feel really comfortable in a big setting like this, or I don't feel really comfortable with it being so small and intimate. I really would have liked to have known more before coming and investing in time. So it's important for you to be talking about the vision. That will help you to start to develop what is our story and how can we help to communicate to people what our heart, what our passion, what our sole purpose is, and get them connected. And then you're going to have the personality of the organization, which is separate from the other types of deep rooted things like values. Like, what are our values is under our strategy. What is our personality is under the other types of things that you wouldn't really think twice about. Maybe it's just a logo and you're like, yeah, that looks cool. And you don't think much of it, when it really should be formulated to your organization in a very intimate way. And it should definitely not be taken lightly. If you're like, oh, we're just going to do a rebrand, because I work a lot more with companies who and organizations that are trying to rebrand because they're very scared that the rebrand will actually harm the organization. You can see why that was so impactful in the news over the last year with a couple of companies who decided to take massive changes to their culture, and that started with the logo. It started, and then it quickly moved into the atmosphere. It quickly moved into their brand colors. Like, they changed everything and they did it very quickly. There was no time for the consumer to really grasp the culture change. So it did not work well. I will say that they did well in listening to their crisis communication team, who probably said, hey, like, people are way more invested in the things that you would have never thought they would have cared that much about. And if you don't make a shift back, you're probably going to lose this in the long run. And they did listen, and that's really great. But we can do that as a church culture as well. We may think like it's not that big of a deal if we change the website or if we change the logo or we decide to go with a new set of colors. If you've had that with your organization for 20 or more years, you may get a little bit of pushback from people who felt very intimately connected with maybe old merch or a simulation that they had put into their lifestyle. And so people may have that symbol associated to the back of their car if they have like an old decal or something. And so it makes them feel not connected to the community and the culture. It can also communicate that like you just don't want us here anymore. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely culture shifts where sometimes that is the purpose of it. But most of the time, people are not looking to do a complete and absolute overhaul. They are just looking for something fresh and they don't realize how detrimental it can be. So, really think about the personality. Is this something I'm going to love 20, 30, 40 years from now? And if you're thinking about a rebrand, think about stages of the rebrand and listen to the consumer as you go along. And then how can we connect with people? Where are we going to be putting this now strategy and personality? Because those colors and that logo and the vision and the communication of your values is all going to move onto your website, your social media, your printed materials, and it's going to be something that you really work hard in your onboarding process with your employees as well, that they understand what the brand is, that they're coming on board with, and that they represent the brand well. Especially if you're going to do a rebrand, sometimes you have to acknowledge whether or not the staff members that you have are a good reflection of the new vision and the new rebrand. So just take that into account when you're thinking about rebranding. It is not a quick switch. It's not something you should be making a decision overnight. You should be having test groups of people, maybe 20 to 50 of your congregants in a room and saying, hey, we're thinking about changing the colors to this. We're thinking about changing the logo to this. We're thinking about changing our vision overall. What is the feedback? And then give them paperwork that they can submit anonymously to give you feedback. And that's going to help you to gauge how the consumer is going to actually handle that change. When it comes to color branding, I give an old analogy of old movie theaters. The reason why they chose red as being those heavy velvet curtains that were adjacent to the wall when you first walked into the movie theater is because most people don't necessarily think of themselves as hungry when they walk into the movie. But as soon as you sit down and you're surrounded by that red, it actually stimulates something in your brain to tell you that you're hungry and that you're thirsty. And so you'll go to the concessions and you'll actually purchase something to eat. And so color branding does have a specific purpose. It's not just, oh, that color looks pretty. You really want to be thinking about what the colors represent, the tone of your environment. On this wheel, you get a good sample of some of the ways that it can make people feel. So, for example, yellow really pushes the idea of optimism. You may have blue. The reason why you see blue with so many different financial companies is because it just gives this level of confidence. Purple it comes in many different majestic tones, but it tends to lean on the creative. Like we're very creative. It can be very calming as well. So you're going to use it more if you're like looking for a more free-spirited person who's looking for ways to connect, and then so on and so forth. And so you have your pinks, your reds, and your oranges, and then everything kind of in between, your greens. You really have to kind of play with these and see how they speak with each other, and that they're not coming across too aggressive, that when you look at it, they're not like so bright. But typically your brand color should only be 2, maybe 3. And the reason why we do that is because when you go to print anything, it gets really expensive for every color that you add. So you really want to keep everything as simplified as possible. I sometimes see these logos and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 6 or 7 colors in there. That's got to be so expensive when they go to print anything. So that's why you may only see a lot of branding aspects in maybe 2, at max 3 colors, is because it's costly to add those additional colors. All right, so what about marketing? Why is marketing so different from branding? Isn't it just essentially the same thing? You're taking your brand, you're putting on social media. That's marketing, right? Well, not exactly. Marketing has what we call a funnel. And the funnel helps people to go from being aware of who you are down into the actually being invested in who you are. And so, certain aspects, what I will hear so often is someone goes, well, we spent money on this one time and it didn't work. And so we're never going to do it again. All of your marketing has to have something in every single aspect of the funnel layered down for it to be consistent. You also shouldn't expect results in marketing for the first 90 days. And the consistent messaging really should be for 2 years or more for you to get the proper results that you really want. So if you're thinking that you're going to just buy one Facebook ad, throw something out there, or you're going to pay one time for a billboard and you're going to throw it out there, and you're like, I just didn't see the results that I wanted, it's because you're not doing it right. It's not because marketing doesn't work, it's because you're not doing it correctly. Somebody has ill advised you, probably a salesperson, who says, like, if you buy this radio ad, it's going to like change your life. No, you really have to understand the marketing tool that you're buying and which category it is actually in. So, for example, if you're going to do radio, that's in the awareness. It makes people aware. Nobody is driving around in their car listening to an ad and going, oh, I got to like immediately go on the web and get that. They just don't do it like that. It makes them aware of who the organization is and what they do. Television works the same way. Very little engagement. You're starting to see some social media connection between commercials nowadays where they put like the QR code at the bottom, or even Amazon has uh, like a button you can hit on your remote that says like you can add this product to your cart now, because they understand that awareness does not mean the same as engagement. The second part of that funnel is essentially really constructing an environment and an opportunity for people to get more familiar. Like, they've heard of you, now they're seeking out more information. And so this is going to be like your organic social media, like, oh yeah, like I heard about this on the radio. And then they see something on social media and they look at it a little bit longer. And it's really created and cultivated an interest. And so your organic search, your SEM, your SEO. So if, let's just say, for example, you're a church and you heard a radio ad about how, like, well, we're the cowboy church, like we have rodeo every Sunday night. And they're like, oh, that's cool. Keep driving. Don't think anything of it. And then they see a Facebook ad that is like, hey, we're the cowboy church. And like, oh, I just heard about that on the radio. And so you may like the page, but you still have not attended a service. Okay, so that's what I mean. Like, they have an interest in the idea, but it doesn't mean they've become a consumer yet. And then you get into the reputation aspect of it, of people kind of, they need other people to tell you that it's good. So they're going to go and they're going to look at recommendations and what other people say about that church. And so that's why certain Facebook groups do so well when they're like, hey, thinking about going to this restaurant or thinking about going to this bookstore. What's your feedback? Was it good? Was it inexpensive? Did you get good table service? Whatever it may be, that really helps them to get to the next level of, okay, so the testimonials of people coming to your nonprofit or church are vital, not just because you're like, oh, we're great. It's because people need to know faces in their community that they trust saying, I've had a positive experience. My kids love it here. My marriage was saved here. Whatever it was that really connected them, that pushes people past the point of curiosity and is now like, okay, so they have a good reputation. Then they're going to go into conversion and engagement, and they're going to go to your website to see what time your services are, what time your youth meets, what are your landing pages, what kind of Bible studies you have online for them to listen to so they can see whether or not they take an interest. I can't tell you enough that, like, people do make decisions on some of the simplistic things, like, do I like the pastor's voice? Like, does his does the way he teach, is it dynamic? Is it too monotoned? Am I going to fall asleep? What is the music? Is it good? Is it acoustic? Is it do they even have worship? Do they go straight into the study? So they do that part of it of saying, okay, we've gotten all the way into now researching what time to go. Then they go and they become the consumer. And they really start to engage with, okay, I went one time, now we have to make them aware of like why they should come back. So it goes all the way back to the top of the funnel because now they are dependent on receiving social media and other things to say like drip 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 drip, come back, come back. And so you'll notice the same thing works like if you purchased a shirt online and they're like, come back, buy that shirt again. Like we have other shirts in the same, style, but maybe like get a different color and we'll give you 30% off. So it's the same thing. You would be really specific about your niches of understanding like, okay, this person came for the first time. They enjoyed it. They were a woman. They were over the age of 30. They have she has 3 kids. She's a widow. Who can we connect her with? Why should she come back? She should come back because we have a great women's, organization, because we have a youth camp coming up, because we have a VBS opportunity. Like, know how to talk to that person. Don't be sending them newsletters. Like, these newsletters should be broken down into very key aspects of their demographics, because she doesn't want to get a newsletter about like Father's Day luncheon. And she's going to feel like, oh, see, they don't know me as a person. They just know me as an attendee. And I'm just going to get all general mail. And so it really does make a difference to receive something specific to your environment to make you feel connected, of going, oh, wow. That's why most people go back and buy another shirt, because they're like, oh, they remembered. They remembered that I bought this shirt, that I got it in this color, and they're giving me recommendations for other things that I like. They know me as a consumer. Even though it's probably an algorithm, it doesn't matter. The point is that they feel like the brand, the reputation continues to be good, because the brand is establishing that we care about you as an individual and we want you to be invested as an individual. And that really does help set the tone. You might be asking, okay, Izzy, we're doing all of that. We've invested the money. We know the difference. We've established our vision. We've got the videos. We've got all the things. Why is our social media and our marketing and our branding not working? Well, let's talk about some of the things that you should stop doing immediately, instead of telling you the things that you should, because you're going to tell me that you're probably doing that. So let's start with, stop using your social media as a bulletin board. People do not invest in events for the sake of investing in events. They want to come to events to cultivate relationships with other people. And so it's important for them to know people. They want to understand the culture. What type of event is this? What is the experience I'm going to have at this? Is it something to where I'm going to have this deeply rooted, incredible biblical encounter? Is it a more of a emotional experience? Is it fun? Is it geared towards connection and fellowship more than anything else? Like, be specific about tones and emotions, not like times and dates, if that makes sense. The second thing to stop doing is stop really focusing on faces and identity. A lot of times people want to be like, look, we have young people, or like, look, we have diversity. And that just doesn't hit with anybody today, because too many brands are doing that. Too many people are saturating that idea of like, we have diversity. Like, look at us, look at us, look at us. They care more about, is there a space for me as a person? So I don't care if there's more people that look like me. I care about if there's more people that are going through life like me. So that might be identifying, is there a group for single moms? Is there a group for single young people? Is there a group for widows? Is there a group for people who've recently gone through divorce? Is there a group for drug and alcohol addiction? Is there a group, like go down the specific niches as opposed to generalized people. Like, oh, we have a women's ministry. What type of women? What type of, like, why do I care? Not all women are going through the same things. We're on different stages of life. There's some women who are heavily dependent on their relationships and they're like, oh, I can't function outside my relationship. And some women who are like, oh, I've been single for 30 years. They don't see the world the same. So it's really important for you to be able to identify, are there places to grow with the type of life experience that you're currently in? And to not just assume that all demographics think and breathe and work the same way, because if we have those types of conferences where they're like, okay, man, like you in your workplace, you in your workplace, you in your workplace, and you realize that 50% of the people that are out there are retirees, then you're really not connecting with your base. You don't understand who you're talking to. And then 50% of your guys are sitting here going, I haven't worked in the last 5 years. I've been retired for 10 years. I don't even know what it was like to work, because I'm just at a completely different stage in life. It's important for you to know where your people are in life. Stop relying on Facebook for attendance as well. The algorithm is based on time and commitment and content, not just engagement. So if you're like, we're only going to post so people come to things, we're only going to post it. No, give them substance to read, give them substance to connect with, help them to understand why you care about the single mom or why you care about the special needs child. Help them to connect and go, wow, their soul, their purpose, their intentionality is amazing. I want more. I want to know more of how they're doing things, and not just I want to go attend and absorb these opportunities, but it really helps with engagement because people will be like, I love to volunteer in that particular demographic because I have too been in that season of life, or maybe I just feel a heart and a soul for that. And I didn't even know there was a church around here that even had a ministry that was specific to that. So, talk amongst yourselves of identifying who are the key demographic um, groups of people that are in our establishment, but that are not that it's not solely based off of, well, we're a multicultural environment. Well, I should hope so. Like that. It's like a given. You need to talk more about specific demographics of like where people are in life. Do remember that what works for one organization works for that one organization. They understand who's coming to their events, or they understand who's coming to their ministry opportunities, and they have really listened, they've engaged, they have developed specifically around them. If you look at other churches or you look at other organizations, we go, oh man, I want to rinse and repeat that. It may work against you because it may actually butt up against your culture, and they're going like, why are we doing this here? This doesn't even make sense. This does not fit into our culture. And it's really because you're just trying to take something that works somewhere else and bring it there. So the best way to be successful in your events, if you're trying to continually raise your engagement levels, and you should be working with a system. And if you haven't worked with a consultant to develop systems, reach out to me. But you should be having KPIs. You should know how many people came in 2024, how many people came in 2025, what's our goal to set for 2026. And those numbers should be increasing, not solely on the premise of like, I can't stand when people are like, well, 125 people came to the Lord. No, we're not measuring by that. You should be measuring like, have we grown in translation? Like people took the course and then came to the conference, or people watched the video and then came on a Sunday morning or whatever. Like your KPI should be more about like, is what we're ministering and what we're speaking really reaching people in a way that brings them to the realization of where they are in their walk with the Lord, and it reaches them to want to lean further into sanctification. It's not just about conversion. The key aspect of that is that you have to listen and you have to absorb. So you might have an idea of like, oh yeah, like let's do this, let's like throw this out there, let's create this, and everyone else is kind of like, "Ooh, I'm not really buying it." I'm not really into it. And you're like, well, the team loved it. The staff members were absolutely in love with the entire system. Well, that's great, but it did not work for reaching the consumer. So the best way to do that is to engage with data and to reach out and say, hey, how can we best serve you well? What are some things that you feel you would really, you know, want in your spiritual environment, in your spiritual walk that would help you to develop? And then listen and learn how to acknowledge that and how to adapt to that. So, setting key people in place that speak the language of the individuals as well. Like we work with a homeschool fellowship. I would never want someone to take that over or to be in a position of leadership that wasn't a homeschool mom, specifically because it's just a very different type of lifestyle, and it in order to cultivate those relationships and to have dynamic engagement, you need to be able to understand and to be as like minimally subjective as humanly possible in order for it to work. And so it's really important that as you develop these key niche things, so like, okay, this is what the people want, they really want something, that you pick someone that is very good with that type of organization or people, because anything else would just be like a really bad recipe. And I would rather you not develop the program or the ministry than to do it and just warm body method it, which I talk about in many, many different trainings. So that can be really hugely detrimental to you. So um, listen, adapt, engage, and then pick the right people to do that for your organization only. Okay, so maybe you're ready to launch. You're ready to go to the next level of like, okay, which market should we be in? Which area should we be leaning our time and attention to? It depends on who your people are. If you have a majority, or maybe you're just, I'll use an event, for example. If you're going to host an event and it needs to reach a very specific demographic, then the market that you place it on has to be different. So in other words, like if you're solely just depending on like, well, we put the event on Facebook and it didn't reach. Well, who is it supposed to reach? Well, it was for, people who are graduating high school and going into college. We really want, well, they're not on Facebook. So of course they're not going to hear anything about it because nobody has a Facebook account that's like under the age of 22. So um, you have to know who your goal target audience is, and then that will help you to figure out where you should be placing your ads. So 45 and older, you can do things like radio, TV ad placement, Facebook, print mailers, especially over the age of 55. Like they love their print mailers. They read them, they truly engage with that. Newspaper ads, 100%. And this is also great if you're trying to reach decision makers, older professionals, board members, parents, community stakeholders. Have those things. So if you're trying to make an announcement and you don't have anything printed and then you want them to invest into it, like throw it out the window. It's not going to happen. They want something physical to be able to take home, to research, to look at, to memorize, to be able to refer back to. And those are typically your heaviest investors. So invest in the money to print things. Just do it. Trust me. Um, and then let's just say you're trying to reach your millennials and maybe your older Gen Zers, so that 18 to 35 bracket, you're going to utilize other platforms. Okay. So Instagram, testimonial videos are great for all of the social media platforms because they really do listen to what other people have to say. They don't just take you for face value, especially millennials. They're very skeptical. They grew up with a lot of skepticism because it's just the world that they lived in. And so they're not going to take you for face value. They're looking for that endorsement, looking for that celebrity endorsement. They want transparency on the website. It's like, what am I buying into? Is it safe? That's what they're looking for. They also are present on things like LinkedIn and Pinterest and X. So if you're not, which most churches don't, they're not very good about their Pinterest. They might be okay in their LinkedIn, but they don't put too much emphasis on it. Do better on that. But I need to do better on that, I'll be honest. Pinterest actually is a great place to have your staff develop content that is specific to whatever niche they're over. So let's just say you have a children's ministry director. Maybe he creates 5 content pieces a quarter. I'll be nice. 5 content pieces a quarter that are like, here are some good Christian crafts you can do at home with your kids. Here are 3 simple ways to teach your kids how to pray. Here are the best Christian girl t-shirt companies that we highly recommend. Whatever, and if you have products that you've developed in your organization, if you're big enough to have a store or whatever, take those female products and put them in the demographics on Pinterest, and we develop those ads on there. I would heavily use Pinterest. X is a place where most people neglect, lean in for having strong conversations. If you want to start to develop having spaces where people can communicate about topics, that's a good one. Like if you're going to launch a new Bible series, like, hey guys, I'm going to launch this new Bible series, and then you finish with sermon 1, and then you're like, what's the feedback on sermon 1? And let people talk about it. Let people be like, oh, my favorite line that you said was da 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 da, and like repost that, because again, it goes back into that testimonial space. And then you have the market that's under 25. They're like, how do we reach them? Okay, so let me put it this way. They are on things like Spotify and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat, which we haven't talked about, and I'll dive into that here in a second. But like their main thing is YouTube testimonials. I asked my oldest one day, I was like, hey, obviously you don't watch TV. Obviously you're not on Facebook. Like, how do you make a decision to purchase something? And he's like, YouTube. I watch someone unbox something. I see them use it. I'm like, that's really cool. I would find benefit in having that. And so I'll typically go and I'll make a purchase to it. If I'm on TikTok and someone's like, oh, check this out, I just bought this from the TikTok store. That's how I'm doing it. So they really do look for those testimonial videos. That's how they become consumers. So if you're depending on anything else to reach them at that age, like, good luck. I would recommend having a Snapchat to reach this demographic. And, some people are going to be like, should we even have? Okay, look, a lot of kids have Snapchat. That's how they communicate. It's just how they do it. They don't even text. Like, even texting for them is like ancient. Oh my gosh. It's like brought by a dinosaur if they get a text message. It's like, that's what parents do to their kids. They text them. Snapchat is an opportunity to say, hey guys, just reminding you, we've got Bible study tonight. Bring a friend. Just little things, like they open the story and they're like, oh yeah, it is Wednesday. Or like, oh yeah, we are going to have a pizza party tonight. Totally forgot about that. So this needs to be heavily regulated. Multiple people need to have access to the Snapchat, because what you don't want, and you need to I think there's a way on the back end to block it from receiving messages. You should never have someone on staff that is communicating with a student, obviously, but I have a whole nother training on that. But specifically, like, this is just for information. So you should just be using the storyboard for, oh, look at what we did last night. Like, sorry you missed out. And it's like everybody having the volleyball night or whatever. And it just creates a sense of like FOMO and gets people engaged through emotional connection and community of going like, oh, I didn't know that my friend so-and-so went. Like, I just saw them on the Snapchat video. Like, that's cool. Okay, at least I know someone there. I should go check it out. So that's why I would recommend it. You can argue with me about it if you find that it's not helpful, but I'm just trying to tell you which platforms kids are on. So you might be asking, how do I get people to come to my events? I feel like I'm doing really good with our social media marketing. I feel like we're really on top of announcing when our events are and putting things on our website and all of that, but people are still not coming. I want to boil this down to what people think atmosphere is. And a lot of nonprofit organizations think that Atmosphere is developing conversations about like, this is what our sanctuary looks like, and this is people worshiping in our sanctuary. That's not that unique in reality. That's cool that that's happening, but it doesn't make me want to go. Like that's not something that creates a spark in me that's like, oh, I need to be there for that. I need to be there because I see a picture with other people raising their hands. That's just not what gets me to spend $120 to go to a conference. What I will say is that if I understand what the experience is and the tone and the vibe is set and it's communicated well, I'm happy to invest the money. So I might see a kids conference and they're like, we're going to do this on day 1 and we're going to do this on day 2 and we're going to do this on day 3, and I'm like, yeah, totally. I'll spend the $180 because I understand what I'm paying for. I feel like I'm investing into an experience for my kids that they're going to walk away and they're going to have this positive experience. They're going to encounter the Lord, but they're also going to cultivate good relationships with other people. Let's just say it's a women's luncheon and you're like, hey, you should come to a women's luncheon. And the picture that you post, I have 2 pictures on my slide here. The one on the left is like an empty sanctuary or auditorium, and the one on the right is this beautiful table set, the charcuterie. And you look at the one on the left, and you're like, I don't feel like I need to be there. And usually you'll see that picture and they'll be like, we want you to come sit here with us. And you're like, I don't, okay, maybe we'll see. Like if something else better doesn't come along, I'll go. That's what I hear a lot of people say, is that they wait so long to RSVP to events because it's just not that exciting. And they're waiting to see if like someone else is going to invite them to something else. It's such a big deal in the culture and the environment that I live in here in East Texas, where I can tell you that I've had events where I had 19 people signed up for a dinner. And the night before, it went from 19 people to 119 people because 100 people decided, oh, yeah, I don't have anything to do tomorrow. I guess I'll go to that. And it really was because um, people don't necessarily always know what to expect. And so when you or they've had a negative experience at a past event, let me say that as well. Like they're like, oh, I've been to a women's conference before, it was so boring. Or I went to a men's camping trip and it was really lame. Like we didn't even have this or that or whatever. And so they may be comparing from a past experience. So it's really important for us to set the tone for this particular experience. Hey, when you come in, you're going to have this type of encounter. And let's just say I'm big on themes. I'm just big on themes. I think they work. So if I say we're going to have an Esther encounter, and I defined the day as being, a beauty experience, and then going into this beautiful place of worship where you've designed this amazing set on stage, and then maybe it's that you have this snack time where it's a genuine Middle Eastern themed, table setting where people can have an experience where it's taken out of their everyday life. They know they know that their life is complicated. I think that they're like, if you're struggling with this, you should come. And it's like, well, they know they're struggling with it. That's not always enough of a reason for people to invest into changing their circumstance. But if they know they can go somewhere else, that they can just kind of leave their problems behind for 3 hours and step into a different experience and walk away also fueled and healed or free from whatever it is they walked in with, you can do both things. And I don't think a lot of people know that. I think that they think, well, when it's really serious and it's about a serious topic, we need to just have it like just solely focused on that. Not necessarily. You want as many people to come and be free from that thing. And so, really helping to define the experience may get people who would never typically come to that type of event to come to that type of event. Otherwise, you're going to find what I find a lot of organizations get is the same people coming to the same things. And it's always like the same 10%. And it's just because they like coming to events. Like, it doesn't matter if you threw a bag of chips at them. They were like, no, of course we're going to come because it's at the church, or we're coming because it's this organization we've been a part of for 40 years. They don't care what it is. But that doesn't mean that you're engaging the other 90% of your organization's base. So it starts with having conversations of, are we defining what the series is? Have we developed the experience around the series? Who's teaching? Why is it important for me to care who's teaching? Where are we going to meet? Is this an outdoor experience, indoor experience? Again, kind of going back to this idea of like, what should I wear? And how should I present myself? I can't tell you how many times that becomes a conversation amongst people is, what are you wearing to this? So just be as clear as possible. It really helps set the tone. And the next part about branding and marketing is, how do we keep people engaged past the 2-year mark? A lot of times people kind of get to that point where they're like, I don't really feel like I'm growing anymore here, or don't really feel like I have adapted to the culture here. So we're going to move on. We're going to go somewhere else. Or if you're a nonprofit, maybe you're just like, year after year, we're not keeping investors. So what are we doing wrong? And it's because your brand doesn't have a goal that extends past a dead end. A lot of times people set their goals as being like, well, we want to raise this much money this year, or we want to develop this ministry this year. And so once that's up and running, or once you've hit that goal, it's kind of like, well, okay, cool. Like, that's it. There's nowhere else for these people to go with that, because it's essentially hit a dead end. Where if you really start to create processes for personal development of giving people space to grow within the organization, it will really help them to identify what their heart's intentions are, what their mind's intentions are, and how do I, move along in my path of sanctification. And so developing processes that really, and I'm going to do a different training on this, but developing processes that help people to see where they need to go next and why they need to, not get stuck in one thing, really helps them to give themselves a long-term goal in your organization that isn't dependent on you fulfilling that. Because a lot of times, the executive director or the pastor feels like, oh man, my preaching has to be on point every Sunday, because if I don't, like, people are going to leave. Well, if they have a trajectory in the organization to grow that's not solely dependent on whether or not they like you this week or not, it really helps them to invest long term. Sometimes the best branding is that we care enough to think out the next steps for them. So it's not just about getting them in the door. It's not just about getting them to be a tither, but really helping to invest in them developing as a person. And so that trajectory might look like, hey, if you're here in your path, you might be encouraged to attend this group or this group or this service. If you're here in your walk, you might be interested in attending this event annually or this event annually. And that really helps them to figure out how to meet other people who are also in the same point in their walk as well. Because I see a lot of conflicts with people who are, when they're not in the same point in their relationship with the Lord in sanctification, they get frustrated with immature Christians, or immature Christians tend to be a little legalistic at first. And so they can get really frustrated with people who have fully leaned into freedom. And so it can just get kind of wonky. And so you want people to connect to other people who are in the same stages of their walk. That will really, really help to get them connected. So you can use that by leaning into traditional media marketing, like comp cards or brochures or booklets. Don't be afraid of these things. Don't think that just because we are a technological environment and generation that you have to have everything tech available. There are some people who just refuse to download the app on their phone, or they just refuse to go to the website. So give people options. So how can we help people to get in touch? By helping them understand that growth is a part of the experience, the church culture experience, the nonprofit involvement experience, How do we get them to move in the trajectory of where we want them to go and not be stagnant? This verse in Romans chapter 12, verses 4 through 5, for just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ, we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. So this really helps me to remember that every single person has a purpose within the organization. It's just a matter of meeting them where they are and helping them to get connected and to grow with other people who are in like-minded situations. And so it's not just about putting everybody in a herd and being like, get along, like everyone learn to love each other. Um, Life just doesn't work like that. People don't work like that. They want connection with people who see them and to understand their situations and to speak truth, but also compassion into their environment and still have empathy left in the tank for them. So, the only way that we can do that is to understand that each member has a purpose and we need to connect them to their purpose alongside other people who are also pursuing purpose, and we can do better at taking the time to analyze that information and then presenting that with solutions through our branding and our marketing aspects, because this is not like a sub business, profit line or a budget line. This is a part of the ministry, because if we do not communicate well what it is that we do, we can't actually reach the people that we want to. We can't help them heal. We can't help them connect in their hurting seasons. That we can't help them be encouraged. We can't help them to, just adapt to a community, like if they're just moving into the area. And so, if we do not do well to communicate what all we can do for people and why we care about doing those things for people, then we just miss the buck on the ministry. And again, you're going to find that you're kind of rinsing and repeating and doing a lot of things to try to be culturally relevant that are not actually translating. Or you'll just find that you're really speaking to the same 10% consistently, and you really don't want to do that. So, I hope this helps you to learn a little bit about your branding and marketing. If you are struggling and you feel like you are running in circles and it's getting nowhere, we'd love to help you to build out your communication program and to just help you to define what needs you may need. And that might involve us coming in and talking to you about some of those communication aspects, but it might be that we just connect you to great resources to help you to get your story and your brand or developing your KPIs out so that you can really help establish successful environments for your people. And you can always do that at made to walk.org.